Hey, what's up, people? Tottenham Hotspur 1, Arsenal 4. Yeah, let's talk about Tudor's first game. Um, yeah, it didn't go very well. So let's just talk about the starting lineup first of all. Surprisingly, there wasn't that much difference between Tudor and Frank's starting lineup. That's to do with the limitation of the players we have available because we only had 13 to 14 first team players available. Although it's to do with the fact that, yeah, we just started off the same sort of style. So Vicario was in goal. The back three was Van der Ven, Dragusin, and Paulinho. It was quite speculated that we would play back three. Tudor tends to apparently play a 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, which is kind of what we lined up with quite frequently in Italy. And it was kind of reflected in the starting lineup. The midfield was Gallagher and Sarr, and Bissouma. Quite an interesting take. Like Bissouma, he got taken off later in the game, but I don't think it was that great. And then you had Moani and Xavi was essentially playing as like a second striker, really, as the 3-5-2 or 5-3-2. Well, let's get into the game. Arsenal dominated. Probably could have been 3 or 4 nil up at half time, and they got their goal eventually through none other than Eze, who was given his first start in God knows how long is in Premier League for Arsenal. And of course, he was going to score his mandatory goal. But then Spurs responded with Moani, who probably is best aim for Spurs, but is it good enough for us right now? I don't know, but right now we don't have many other options. And it made it 1-1, and Spurs just about went to halftime a 1-1. And you thought, after weathering the storm of the first 45 minutes of Arsenal going constant, surely Spurs in the second half would be just a bit more aggressive. You can see Tudor on the touchline shouting at the players and just weren't responding to him. The defense to get up. Look at Arsenal's side. When they attack, almost the whole team is in our half, right? And then when we attack, there's like maybe 4 players at a time attacking. And that's to do with the fact that it's formation or just the team is very disjointed. But the problem is that we have the players we have right now. Well, I guess we can kind of bring more players, but let's be realistic. We can't really make that much of a difference player personnel wise in the situation we're in. So we have to do what we've got to do with what we have. And anyways, we let flipping Gokora score in in the second half, and it was just such poor defending. When I look at just the way we conceded and how much space we gave him to turn and shoot, there was literally no one around him. And okay, we can talk about disallowed goal with Marnie, which I don't think it was even anywhere near a foul on Gabriel, but the momentum was with Arsenal and they deserved to win the game. And obviously the second one went in, then the third one went in through Eze. And yeah, the game was kind of over at that point. And what worries me most out of all of it, and I'm kind of deviated from my main point of this whole video, is the players didn't seem to respond with Tudor. In my opinion, I didn't see a response from them. And I've spoken a lot about how weak mentally this team is. Like, you can look at old Spurs sides in the 90s and 2000s who, player-wise or technical ability-wise, with the players we have back then and now, the players technically now we have are probably better. Xavi's probably better than flipping Jamie Redknapp back in 2004. Tarico is a lot worse than on paper than probably Spence. Look at and compare players like that. And just as an example, top of my head, but those players back then, even someone like Stefan Freund, their mentality was a lot better, a lot mentally stronger. And this is why we were surviving back then and finishing okay, we're finishing 13th, 14th. But the point I'm trying to say is, with the player recruitment we've made with such young players like Archie Gray, who I thought was really poor again, and the selection of the players we made and the players we have in the roster, as I say in America, even the experienced players, a lot of them actually experienced relegation. Someone told me off air. I don't know if Spence is one of them, but there's a few of them apparently. And on top of that, throughout this season, when we've gone like 1 or 2 goals down, they just give up. They're not willing to fight. And today, I know we were 3-1 down, but we're so desperate for points that for the players to just give up at that point, considering we still had like about 20 to 30 minutes left of the game, we just didn't seem to we didn't want it enough. Of course, Arsenal drew to Brentford and Wolves, the reason Wolves got back into that game in midweek was because they wanted it enough. If you looked at the Arsenal players compared to Wolves players in that game, the Wolves players wanted it more, and Wolves are bloody relegated already. So, where is the desire from them players? Where is the passion? Like, some people said in the first half we coped, like, there was more fight, but if I'm being honest with you, I didn't see much of a difference. Even tactically, like I said, we still played a back three, like with Paulina in the back three, which is what Frank was implementing near the end of his tenure at Spurs, which obviously no one really likes Frank at this point. But like, I'm just trying to say, I didn't see much of a difference, and it's very worrying. And the worrying thing that worries you the most is the lack of response that Tudor got from the players, who were shouting at them to get out and push out and to be kind of more of a unit as a team. And we weren't doing it. And the problem is that Tudor doesn't have the patience and can be afforded the patience in the situation we're in, where they players have like, say 4 or 5 games to learn the system. We literally have 11 games left of the season. And if they learn the system, in 3 or 4 games, by then we could be in the relegation zone. And we'll be dropping into the relegation zone by the time they've learned, and then we're trying to get out. And it's like, we don't have time to waste. We have to go to Fulham and actually try and win now. If we got a point today, I'd be a lot more confident. Or if we just lost 2-1, or even maybe 3-1. But the fact that players did give up at 3-1, and then we didn't even want it. Like this one, we didn't even want it. And apart from Paulino, who got taken off there in the half, I don't see anyone on that pitch who's going to galvanise the rest of the team. The midfield pairing, I mean, Gallagher, for him, technically wise, like I said, technically he's meant to be like a leader, but he's not that kind of like vocal leader. And I guess some people would point to the fact that Romero is missing, but Romero made much of a difference. I mean, would he have even stayed on the pitch, Romero, in this game? That's another question. But like Van der Ven's body language was really poor, I thought. He was our captain as well, and it kind of showed to me that he doesn't want to be here anymore. And we need to get rid of him in the summer. As much as I think he's our best player and he's carried us this season, I think we have to let him go. And then fingers crossed we stay up, and then we can just kind of rebuild again. But I say rebuild every season, but like we are in massive trouble. And the thing that worries me the most, I keep saying this, is the lack of response from the players from Tudor. And Tudor's meant to be this massive motivating manager, but if he's not getting a tune out of them, I mean, at this point we've got no one else. But if he's not getting a tune out of them, then these players, it's like they've given up. They've accepted relegation, or they've accepted that they're not going to improve. It's massively worrying. Anyways, come on, you Spurs.